I'd like to call to order the March 1st, 2024 Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Commission meeting. Today I would like to ask Major Greg Watts to lead us in our invocation.
Let's pray. Our most precious Heavenly Father, first let me say thank you on behalf of all that have gathered here today. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for your life, health, and friendships. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing those responsibilities. Thank you for the freedom we enjoy and the great nation that provides that freedom. And thank you most for loving us when we did not deserve it. In Scripture, you have said we are to be good stewards of what you have blessed us with. Therefore, I pray for our commissioner, our commission, and our staff. I pray that you grant them wisdom, confidence, peace in their lives, and joy in their tasks. We plan our courses in our hearts, but we pray you establish our footsteps. Let us not make decisions based on what we know, but let us act based on your wisdom. I pray that you bless all in this meeting and keep them. Lord, make your face shine upon us and be gracious to us. I pray that we feel your presence during this meeting because you are with us wherever we go. In Christ's most precious name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Major Watts. And then I'd like to have Captain Jason Ice lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Just wanted to point out Captain Jason Ice, while he's still here, I asked him to lead us in our pledge today. He recently completed the FBI Leadership Academy. It's a 10-week course that they take, a voluntary selection process available for the rank of lieutenant and above. And when he went, it was during the Thanksgiving holiday, so it was actually an 11-week course. So he's one of 3 people that have taken that course for the department. We have retired Major Larry Estes, Major David Marquise, and now Captain Jason Ice. So thank you for doing that for us. I think it's great to bring additional wealth and knowledge to our department and law enforcement division. So I just want to thank you for that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. So my remarks, I just wanted to really thank Carl for all that he's done as a mentor and a leader and running this show for a while now. I'm trying not to make any mistakes today, so hopefully he can keep me in line with that. I also wanted to point out that Carl has recently this week just had his first grandson, and I think that's great news, and really happy to have another future sportsman coming on board. Thank you. And I also want to remind everybody to please silence your phones. A lot of meetings that I'm at work, if your phone goes off, we have to put $5 in this little bucket, but I know we're not going to do that here. But please silence your phones. And then lastly, with it being March 1st, the hunting and fishing license expired yesterday. So I would just like to remind everybody it's time to get out there and purchase your new license and get ready to go and get that license digitally uploaded in your app so that you can use it wherever you're at, and get out there and try something new. I know last year when I purchased my license, I actually went ahead and selected the trapping. I've never done trapping before, but I thought I'd be interested, and I got 2 DPs and went out there and was able to harvest a few raccoons this year. So try something different if you haven't. It will be very exciting. With that being said, I'll turn it over to Rich for any remarks that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Happy New Year as far as we're concerned in the field, and I encourage you, if you're looking to get somebody something, buy them a license, and goes to awesome cause. And I always want to thank our license holders for what you do. You help us and you allow us to achieve our mission. And and I want to thank our staff and so many people that do great things. And last week I had the opportunity to go to the fisheries staff meeting, and I just felt like I was in a group of distinguished people. And when you hear them talk about what they do, it just gets you excited. And we get in this hemisphere of fish and wildlife, but when we get to the roots of what we are, it's truly an honor to serve with a lot of great people, and y'all can see the professionalism that's second to none. Been to a lot of year-end club meetings, a lot of dinners, which you can probably tell I've been to too many dinners, but a lot of great fellowship, and I can see a lot of enthusiasm in the outdoors and the places we go. And for those of you that haven't seen our year in review, we just produced a document. The commission, y'all should have that in your inbox. You can check that out. And certainly for the sake of time, I won't present that here today. And then I'm always excited to meet new people and work with new people in different roles. But Michael Scott just left the agency. We certainly are disappointed to lose Michael, and he had some things that he needed to take care of, and so I won't dive into that. But we're going to miss him, but we're not going to miss a beat. We've got a guy here with us today who's going to be who is our new acting engineering, infrastructure, and technology leader, Kevin Rexroth. If you would stand, Kevin, and if you don't mind, let's give him a warm welcome. I can say, if you ever take a job with the Department of Fish and Wildlife, it's hard to beat that division, because you're building boat ramps, you're producing quality products, and you get to make things with your hands and get to see projects through. So it's exciting, and so I love to get out. And Jerry and I just recently got to see a project, and the innovation and the attitudes and work ethic are just awesome. And what they pulled off in Richmond was a great project. But with all that being said, we're thankful for the day that we're in. I'm thankful for everybody that's here. Hope you're blessed today with safe travels. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Secretary, could you please perform a roll call?
Sure. Commissioner Floyd. Here. Commissioner Cecil. Here. Chairman Lillard.
Present.
Jerry Farrell, of course, I'm present. Paul Horn. Commissioner Horn, I'm sorry.
Present.
Commissioner Kleinert.
I'm here, sir.
Okay.
All right. Well, moving right along, we're going to go into the action items that we have. Do any of you guys, before we review this action items, have any corrections to these? All right. Well, the first action item would be for us to approve the minutes from the December 1st, 2023 quarterly meeting and the December 14th, 2023 special call meeting, which is attachment A1. So if you guys don't have any corrections or questions on that, I would look for a motion.
Motion.
And second.
I second it.
Any discussion on that? All right. So approved.
Take a vote.
We'll take a vote. Secretary?
Commissioner Floyd.
Aye.
Commissioner Cecil. Commissioner Lillard.
Aye.
Jerry Farrell, aye. Commissioner Horn.
Aye.
Commissioner Kleinert.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
All right. So that's unanimously approved. I tried to just approve that without even calling for it. That's my first mistake. I didn't. Keep it going. All right. Next, we're going to invite Lisa Cox to come up and present us the quarterly financial reports, which is attachment A2, gentlemen. One thing that I learned about Lisa since our last meeting is she does, what do you call it, T accounting? T-line accounting?
Yeah, I do T accounts.
Yeah, T accounts. So that's a good
thing.
thing.
To show the flow of expenditures, receipts, and cash.
All right. Lisa, would you like to review?
On your all's paper copy, I noticed that it's marked as draft, but these are not draft financial statements. The biggest thing that I would note is on not so much the first page that's the overall income statement, but the second page that shows the comparison of December between 24, 23, and 22 in that first set of columns. If you notice, the expenditures have gone up from, they're 10.6 right now, and this time last year it was a little over 5 million. The reason being is that the TIA project that was provided for in statute, normally whenever we do a purchase of land or an easement, that is considered to be a capital project and it wouldn't be on our operating budget. However, the Office of State Budget Director said that since this was a purchase of an easement and not a actual purchase of property, that it had to go through our operating. So that's a big part of the reason. And then to offset the general fund portion of it, so our revenues and expenditures didn't seem real lopsided, kind of like we do for FILO for just the operating portion of the FILO receipts. I put the general fund appropriation under revenues, and that's the amount that hit in December, is that $3.8 million. Our general funds are now exhausted. All of those have been used in the initial purchase that occurred in December for Ataya's easement. In addition, on the cash statement, which is the third page, if you notice, there's a new fund that's listed at the bottom. It's called an Other Expendable Trust Fund, and that's for the Ataya property escrow. As part of the requirement in the statute, we put a portion of the money away. So what happens is and with the initial purchase, we based it on how many acres we believe there to be, and then once the survey is completed in a couple of years, then this escrow is put away by the department and also by the vendor that's selling the property. And they also have an escrow to settle the difference if there's a difference when the survey's complete. And so that's where you see the Other Expendable Trust Fund is new. Otherwise, did you all have any questions about the financial statements?
Doesn't look like. All right. Well, if there's no questions, then I will look for a call for us to accept the quarterly financial reports. Mr. Secretary?
Motion.
Oh, I apologize. I need a motion.
Oh, yeah, I'm your man.
Thanks, Ryan. And the second?
Second.
Paul? All right. Now roll call.
Commissioner Floyd,
Aye.
Commissioner Cecil,
Aye.
Chairman Lillard,
Aye.
Jerry Farrell, aye. Commissioner Horn,
Aye.
Commissioner Clenard,
Aye.
ayes have it.
All right. So that will pass. And moving on, I believe we're going to have, thank you, Lisa. Appreciate your hard work and dedication. And for pointing that out, I think that acquisition is really awesome. Something that we're doing in Bell County, one of the largest acquisitions that we've ever made. And hopefully we'll have a lot of good use for the sportsmen and women in that. Dave Dries, if you could come up here, please. Thank you, sir. So we're going to talk about, or Dave's going to talk to us about the modifying non-traditional fishing regulations to clarify gig possession restrictions, specify possession limits for shovel-nosed sturgeon and sport fish, revise sport fishing trot line tagging requirements, and prohibit hand grabbing on smaller lakes owned or managed by the department.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Again, this is an amendment of 301 KR 1410. That regulates the taking of fish by non-traditional fishing methods such as gigging, snagging, trot lines, and the like. And previously presented these. I can go into as much detail as you want for each of these. Be it at your all's pleasure. Mr. Chairman, would you like me to describe each one again, or how would you like to handle?
I'm going to ask the other commissioners if there's any need for you
I'm
guys to
good
have
on
me
it.
go over all that
I
again.
remember it pretty
I know
well.
that we went over it last time in discussion pretty thoroughly, but if anybody would like some more detail, or no? Nope. I don't think that's necessary. So, with that being said, we need to have a motion to make the changes as addressed here in our packet.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Cecil, and a second.
I'll say.
Jerry Farrell. All right, Mr. Secretary, if you could do a roll call, please.
Sure. Commissioner Floyd,
Aye.
Commissioner Cecil,
Aye.
Chairman Lillard,
Aye.
Jerry Farrell, aye. Commissioner Horn,
Aye.
Commissioner Clenard,
Aye.
ayes have it.
All right, so that passes? All right, so next we're moving right along. We're going to have an informational update and next steps on the CWD response in Western Kentucky. And we're going to have Mr. Ben Robinson give that to us. Ben?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
So I've got a brief presentation that I'll run through, and then we can take any questions that you might have. But we're going to give you an update on chronic wasting disease response and surveillance in Western Kentucky. So I think everyone's well aware with our current situation in West Kentucky. In the fall of 2023, we had our first positive CWD detection in far West Kentucky in Ballard County. That was a 2.5-year-old male hunter-harvested deer that we obtained the sample through our routine surveillance program. Here's just a really quick update on our sampling efforts to date, and I don't think the pointer works for those watching on TV, so I'll try to describe this verbally as well, but you'll see the first 5 counties there. That's our existing CWD surveillance zone that went into place around September of 2021 as a result of the positive detections near our border in Tennessee. And then the counties below that, Ballard, Carlisle, and McCracken, are the adjacent counties to that surveillance zone. But the real take-home for this chart, you'll see on the results section here where it says detected, and you've got your red 1, which is your Ballard County positive, but you see zeros everywhere else. So that means we've not found any other positive samples in our effort to date. You will see there's a pending column over here, and there's a 1 beside Fulton County. That's simply when that's a sample that still remains at the lab. If we have road kills, if we have sick deer, if we find a dead deer, we routinely submit samples throughout the year. That's one that's at the lab right now that's not returned. On January 11th, we hosted our public meeting in Ballard County. That was a very successful meeting. As you can see by the photo, it was very well attended. The majority of folks in attendance were residents of Ballard County or surrounding counties, or hunt in Ballard or surrounding counties. We had some really good conversation, got some good feedback, great questions. We did some survey work while we were there just to get some really good opinions of local constituents. And really the resounding message that we got from that group and that we've gotten since when working with our constituents is folks are asking for a hunter's first approach. The hunters want the opportunity to go in and be able to harvest the deer. They don't want others coming in and doing that on their behalf, and that's exactly what we're maintaining to do, is that hunter's first approach. Now, with that, we do have some requests from our hunters, and we need our hunters to step up in a big way and help us, because we need more CWD samples from this area to get a better handle on our prevalence, to get a better handle on the distribution of the disease and the spread. So we have to have those samples, and we're relying on our hunters to get those samples for us. And hunters, obviously, they manage our deer populations as well by helping keep those in check and helping keep those at a healthy and stable level. So we're really asking our hunters, if you hunt in these areas this year, please consider harvesting extra deer. Help us out, and we'll get those samples from you. And it's important to note that if our hunters aren't able to get enough samples during our current season framework, then that's when we'll look at other options within deer seasons, whether that's potential expanded seasons or new frameworks and things like that we'll discuss. But we're going to go through this season and see how it goes, and really rely on our hunters to help us out. So here's a map of our surveillance zone, and as I noted earlier, the yellow counties, that's our 5-county existing surveillance zone, went in effect around September of 2021 in response to the Tennessee positive deer. The tan or the brown counties, that's our 3 new counties that we would propose adding to the surveillance zone: Ballard, McCracken, and Carlisle counties. And so what does that mean if you're added to the surveillance zone? Well, it means that according to KAR 2172 that we would have mandatory check stations in place. Those locations and dates still to be determined. Only deboned meat and clean skull or taxidermy products may be transported out of the surveillance zone counties. So you could move those around within the 8 counties, but you couldn't take them out. That's in an effort to prevent infecting new areas with a potentially positive deer. And then no baiting or feeding within the surveillance zone, with the exception of normal agricultural practices. A quick update on Tennessee. I did want to note, you'll see the yellow box there. They did have a new detection this year, another in Henry County, about 16 miles from our border, and it was a 2.5-year-old male hunter-harvested deer, which for us really reemphasizes the need to maintain our 5-county surveillance zone because we continue to see positives popping up along our border, so we would like to maintain that zone to keep a good handle on what's going on. And then last, this is an opportunity that I'm really excited about, and I'll share a little bit about, but the Mississippi State University Deer Lab, which is one of the leading deer research units in the country, they have an ongoing CWD deer scrape project with multiple states already participating, and I'm sure everybody here is aware, but for those who aren't familiar with what a ground scrape is, deer, they make ground scrapes, use licking branches during the breeding season. These are ways to communicate their presence to other animals through secretions of urine and glands, saliva. And this study has an opportunity to test these scrapes, to test the dirt in these scrapes to determine the prevalence of CWD or if there's CWD present in the area. So it's a really unique opportunity that we would be excited to participate in. The yellow box there is something to note, no cost for us to participate other than some staff time for us going out and collecting samples. It would be completely voluntary. If landowners wanted to participate and work with us, we could come out and help them collect those samples, but it really would help us to get a handle on the distribution of CWD prions and help us localize our monitoring efforts. So with that, this morning we are seeking Commission approval to add Ballard, Carlisle, and McCracken counties to our CWD surveillance zone and to participate in the Mississippi State CWD Deer Scrape Project. Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, gentlemen, do you guys have any questions for Ben?
Yes.
Carl?
Ben, when was your survey completed? Did that survey that you showed the slides of at the last of January?
So let's see.
Yeah, go your very first slide. So when was that completed? Was that at the end of this season, barely over to 24?
Correct. That was this season's effort. That's not cumulative across multiple years. That was from this season.
And with that, how many new finds in Tennessee have you heard of?
Only the one near us that I highlighted.
Okay,
I
so
can't
there was
speak
no
to
new ones in this
not
last
any
bit.
closer that I'm aware of. Now I can't speak to as you get further down towards the Memphis area, in their endemic area, but near our border, only the one in yellow that I'm aware of.
Okay, my last question was, did you present to the public meeting over in Ballard that you wanted to add those 3 zones, and did you get any kickback from or comments from the public about adding those 3 counties to the zone?
I don't know that we got that specific with asking directly about that, but we presented a lot of different scenarios and asked them several different survey questions. And they were pretty receptive to most of the things.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. They were, from what I understood about the meeting, they were real receptive about keeping up with CWD in that area.
Right.
That's all I had, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? One thing, Ben, I was curious about, I know, are we still looking to do some of the individual sample kits? I know when we have the drop locations in different areas, and then there was some talk about some of the river towns trying to get some more samples, and then potentially having a do-it-yourself kit that you can do and turn in and try to help with that. Is that something that we're still looking at?
Absolutely. Dr. Casey and her team have developed that opportunity that we'll be really pushing in that area. So yeah, do-it-yourself kits where folks can sample and submit those samples. Also, we've got our freezer drop-off program that we're really going to continue to ramp up and try to push so that folks will have a place. If we're not, if the check station is not open at that time of the season, there'll be a freezer location available. We'll have those posted online and on our website, hopefully in the hunting guide as well, so that folks can have the opportunity to get their deer tested.
That was my question, is convenience for the hunter, if we're going to use the hunter first approach, how convenient it is to supply sample and make
Right.
sure that they have the opportunity to do that.
Absolutely. So our check stations will only be open, a select time of year, probably during modern gun season, but that's to be determined. We'll have the freezer locations that we'll push, but also our staff are going to go above and beyond. If somebody really wants their deer tested, we'll make our staff available, and they can work with them to get those samples collected and get those tested.
Awesome. Ben, I really appreciate everything that you do for us and for providing us with this update. And I encourage each of you guys in your districts to, make sure that your hunters are educated on how they can do the field surveys and, make sure they understand the need and requirement to get more samples so that we can be on top of this.
Let me add one point of clarification for anybody that might be confused. We will be having check stations in the surveillance zone, and that's important for us to do. And I think what you all are speaking to is broadly people checking throughout the state and dropping off at locations. And again, we'll be more specific on the mandatory check stations as we move forward. But just a point of clarification.
Thank you.
I have one thing to say too. One of the things I've been extremely proud of our department about is with those physical check stations that we've done, we've tried to make those like the old time check stations that everybody used to go to. We might have a little free coffee, or we'd have some giveaways, some little thermoses, or a Department of Fish and Wildlife hat, or something of that nature. For 25 years, I've heard from people saying, well, I sure wish we could go back to the old check station. I love that so much. Those were all at country stores. We don't have any country stores now. And I can tell you, the dollar store doesn't want us bringing deer on the parking lot to check them. But these check stations are as much like that as we can make them. You meet a friendly face, people shaking your hand, looking at your deer, you get a chance to see what everybody else has shot if you want to hang out. And a lot of those are at processors, so it's really convenient for folks.
Great.
There's a few people that didn't take part in that. Many of those folks are Amish. So if you only have to drive 15 miles, but in a buggy, that's a 30-mile round trip. That's a significant barrier. But for just about everybody else, I don't want to say we had like 94% compliance the first year. That shows me, when do you ever have 94% compliance? That shows me that the check station works. That works.
Yep. Well, and also too that sportsmen care about the resource and want to do what's required to make sure that it's there for future generation. All right. Well, if there's no more questions about this and Ben's topics, we do need to have a motion to accept as read.
I make a motion that we, as per their request, that we participate in the Mississippi State University Deer Study, and that we approve the 3 counties to be added to the CWD surveillance zone.
Any second? Robin? All right, Secretary, if you could make a roll call, please.
Sure. Commissioner Floyd? Aye. Commissioner Cecil?
Aye.
Commissioner Farrell? Aye. Commissioner Horn?
Aye.
Commissioner Kleinert?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
All right, passes unanimously. All right, moving right along, gentlemen. Revised provisions on hunting and fishing on public lands. We're going to have Jenny Gilbert present this to us. Jenny, how are you doing this morning?
Good, thank you.
Good to see you and your smile again.
Thank you. I asked Dave Drees, our fisheries director, to join me. I wanted to be really clear. I think there was some confusion as to this point. We brought this to you all as a new business item along with a few other regulations that were about to expire due to the sunset laws in 13A. And what that means is every 7 years, if that regulation has not been amended in some way, it is set to expire. So we have to certify whether or not we want it to stay the way that it is, or we don't use it anymore, let's let it expire, or we need to amend it. So in the process of looking at those 3 regulations, this one kind of caught our eye because it did have some provisions in it that we felt like were a little dated. The main glaring problem is that that regulation language leaves out fishing. It only mentions whether or not people could be prohibited to hunt or trap when we newly acquire or manage a land and we need to get it ready for public use. There's no reference to fishing there at all. So we definitely need to include that, and I brought Mr. Draves here if you have any questions about that. We did have a question about the adjacent property. This is nothing to do with private land, and I want to really clarify that and stress that for the public that's listening. There are instances where, let's say it's a core property, but we may manage or have an easement around that. So that is what that would be referring to. Any other state or federal property. This is not private property. So just open to your questions. I will tell you we are still working on that. Staff has been in discussions. Mr. Fields has been working on that language even this week. So we do not have final language, and we don't when we come to you all, because there's no reason for us to be drafting final language on a regulation that you all may not approve or you may have different ideas about. So just wanted to be transparent with you and to the public listening about that, and so that you better understand what that means and where this came from. It is old. It has not been looked at recently. There are other lands that are not designated as WMA. We have a WMA reg. This is not for WMAs, but there sometimes is an overlap and a miscommunication there among staff, not miscommunication, a lack of communication among staff. When we look at regs in the past, we really need to look at the regulations as a whole and make sure if we're changing this one, it doesn't inadvertently affect others without also looking at their language. So that's the effort that we're doing right now on this particular regulation. We are not ready for that language. So if you all want to table it, we talked to staff. We are more than willing to do that. We have time in this sunset law timetable. We have time to table it and come back to you at the next meeting with more specific provisions in mind.
Thanks, Jenny. Does anybody have any questions for Jenny? I think that does probably make the most sense in my opinion if we're, don't approve something that we don't have the specific verbiage for.
Sure.
So if you guys are interested in tabling it, then we would need to have a motion to do so.
Motion to table.
And a second?
Second.
Mr. Cecil? Mr. Secretary?
Yes, sure. Commissioner Floyd?
Aye.
Commissioner Cecil?
Aye.
Commissioner Farrell, aye. Commissioner Horn?
Aye.
Commissioner Kleiner?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
All right. So that's unanimous. We will table that and to give you guys some opportunity to come up with the exact verbiage and get back with us. I appreciate you definitely going into detail on the adjacent property piece, and I had a lot of questions about that in my district. All right, moving on. We have add 2 days to the end of spring squirrel season for additional hunter opportunity. And to speak about that, we're going to have Ben back again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, this would look to amend 301 KAR 2122, seasons, methods, and limits for small game by extending the spring squirrel season through the third Sunday in June. So that's adding 2 days there to provide a little more opportunity to finish out the season on a weekend to allow folks to get out, do a little more hunting.
Commissions, anybody have any questions or comments on that? Dr. Clenard?
I make a motion that in the name of Ralph Swallows, our former commissioner who requested this, that we approve extending those 2 days to the end of spring season.
Second that.
Second by Robin Floyd. Dr. Floyd? Just running these right at you, aren't I? Jerry?
It's okay.
Whenever you're ready, sir.
Commissioner Floyd?
Aye.
Commissioner Cecil?
Aye.
Jay Farrell, aye. Commissioner Horn?
Aye.
Commissioner Kleinert.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
All right, so moved. So the next item on the agenda is, again, with Ben presenting this to us, it is to add Siberian Laika, I'm assuming I'm saying that properly, to the list of approved dog breeds, crossbreeds that can be used for bear hunting with dogs.
Yes, sir. This would look to amend 301 KAR 2300, the black bear seasons and requirements. And this request came from our bear dog hunters. They requested to add this breed, the Siberian Laika.
I'll make the motion we accept the amendment as written to add Siberian Laika to the dog breeds.
Thanks, Mr. Horn.
I second that.
Thanks, Carl.
Commissioner Floyd.
Aye.
Commissioner Cecil.
Aye.
Commissioner Farrell. Aye. Commissioner Horn.
Aye.
Commissioner Kleinert.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
All right, thank you. So be it. All right, next thing on the agenda is going to be Brian Clark is going to present to us, and this is about cleaning up regulation language on youth licensing. Brian, how are you doing this morning?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, except for overcoming a cold, so I apologize for the nasal sound and bringing my coffee up here in case I have a cough, but appreciate the opportunity to share this recommendation to you all, proposal. The youth sportsman's license in particular was established about 20 years ago, and while it included the hunting and fishing licenses, at that time and since then, actually, there have been some changes to our permits. The migratory bird and waterfowl permit, for example, has been tweaked. We used to have separate permits. Used to be a waterfowl permit, migratory bird permit, and then also we've added the trout permit. And so there's a need for the youth sportsman to clean up what's included in regulation for that to make it more closely mirror the adult sportsman as it was originally sort of envisioned. And so under Commissioner Stormer's leadership and with help from Jenny and staff across the board, all of our programs, when we have issues that we see in regulation where there's either ambiguity or lack of continuity across time, we've been trying to address those as we detect them and basically shore up the regulations so they're internally consistent. Some of you all have shared examples, for example, with the youth sportsmen, you shared them with me as we've been talking about this item, where your understanding of what was included in this mirrored essentially the adult sportsman. And while I think that's the intent from the creation of this youth sportsman's license, like I say, back in the mid-2000s, we have not amended the regulation consistently over time to include permits that have been added. And so we just want to do that, basically just make sure the youth sportsman license holders are in possession of all the same permits that an adult sportsman holder would have. And it's really not so much an issue except for 15 years old, those holders who are 15 years old turning 16 in that license year. And so a youth who turns 16 after they purchase their youth sportsman before March 1, before the turn of the license year the next year, we want to make sure that they have, again, all the same permits that the standard sportsman license holder would have, so that if they buy their licensed youth sportsmen early in the license year, they turn 16 and then they go dove hunting later in the year, they've got their state migratory bird permit. Or if they go, for example, we want to specifically call out the spring and the fall turkey permits in the youth sportsman. It's not identified explicitly in the regulation that those mirror the same for the youth sportsman as it does for the adult. So from a standpoint of law enforcement and also communications, we want to make sure that this is buttoned up and very, very clear, both in regulation and also in terms of how we communicate in our guides and on our website. So the only difference otherwise is that the regulation does specify that a youth turkey permit includes one turkey. And so we would propose to keep the youth turkey permit that way, but in the youth sportsman, we would reference that the youth sportsman's license, like a standard sportsman, includes both the spring and the fall turkey permits. And so that way they can take two turkeys in the spring, 2 turkeys in the fall, as well as the migratory bird permit and trout permit. One thing we didn't have called out here in text was the trout permit. And so we would like to add that to the youth sportsman. So if a youth turning 16 wants to go trout fishing during that license year, they'd be covered. So it's a pretty straightforward thing. We kind of polled internally among staff, and most staff, kind of along with some of you all who gave me feedback about this, had the assumption that the sportsman for the youth mirrored the adults already. So we just basically want to shore that up in regulation, make sure that we're consistent with our language.
Thanks, Brian. I really appreciate you giving that update. I feel like anything that we can do with the youth to help give them more opportunity to be a field is the right thing to do. So at this point, I would call if anybody's interested.
One question, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Brian, so this is going to include, once he turns 16 during that year, it still has the trout and the 2 turkeys.
Yes, sir. As long as it's purchased, the law says if a license is purchased before their 16th birthday, they're eligible to purchase that youth license. So since the license will be valid through the end of the license year, we're just basically including that, the trout permit, the migratory bird permit, for that youth sportsman's license holder.
Makes sense.
Yes, sir. And I didn't mention this, we are proposing this abnormally as a one-step item because we had this regulation open. And so we're making some changes, some amendments you all have approved already. And that's part of the reason for the timing is that we normally wouldn't do this as a one step, but since we're adding privileges or clearing up the regulation without any additional cost, and we did not receive any comments against this proposal because it's enhancing the youth sportsman. We didn't anticipate that, but it is, I did want to call out, it is a one step. It's instead of a 3-step process, new business, discussion, action, we did this because the regulation is already open and we can clear this up, and then in the fall hunting guide, basically clearly communicate that basically the youth sportsman mirrors the adult sportsman.
Thanks. Any other questions? All right.
Make a motion to accept as written.
Cecil? Need a second?
Second.
Second by Jerry Farrell. Jerry, call when you're ready.
Okay. Commissioner Floyd.
Aye.
Commissioner Cecil.
Aye.
Jerry Farrell, aye. Commissioner Horn.
Aye.
Commissioner Kleiner.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. All right, moving right along to our next item on the agenda, increase fees for selected non-resident license and permits. And we're going to have Commissioner Storm present this to us.
All right, in a non-traditional manner, good morning. This, like what Brian proposed, is part of a one-step, and I'll clearly explain. This Reg 2 was open, and I can't go anywhere without Kentuckians telling me about our non-resident license fees. And I also will tell you, I do have a comment here that opposes that I will read. I have had a multitude of folks that I've had great conversations with that are non-residents that would like to see us maybe present other options, but I'll explain that when I get into the details. But I'm gonna read the public comment, and then traditionally we do this on discussion, but Ben Allgood, who has been someone that has been very reasonable and talked to staff here, this is his comment opposing this raise. Please do not vote to increase the non-resident fees for deer and turkey hunting. I'm a non-resident landowner, and I've stopped buying licenses now for my wife, children, and myself. I limit it to 1 license now due to cost. If the goal is to decrease the population in CWD areas, then higher fees are not the way to go. Also, almost 20% of the harvest, according to recent telecheck reports, are landowner tags, which do not pay a dime to the department. I do pollinator plantings, prescribed fires, invasive species control, forest stand improvements, projects on every acre of my farm. I feel like it's a slap in the face to landowners that pay the bill for other landowners. So let me touch, and again, this is the kind of conservationist that we certainly listen to, and we appreciate the comments. But keep in mind, this really separates Kentucky from other states, and I'd like to thank Gabe for doing some additional homework here. So in the state of Ohio, when you buy a permit, you get to harvest 1 deer. When you're non-resident, you come to Kentucky, you can harvest 4 deer. In the state of Illinois, you can harvest 1 deer or 1 turkey. And you all understand that we're allowing people to harvest 4. In Illinois, it's $386 to deer hunt for 1 deer. In Kentucky, it's $335 for hypothetically 4. So, conversations with the commission, club, staff, elected officials, I'm leaving a multitude of people off. What I would ask the commission to consider is a nominal license fee increase, but long-term, an additional discussion about how we could offer some privileges to non-residents that might be smaller bag limits, perhaps even smaller windows of opportunity, perhaps in the CWD zone, but part of a bigger conversation. But as we do this, and we have slowed processes down for the department, which I think is great for public transparency and obviously for goal setting, we do this, we can't change the fee this license year. Obviously today's the new day, but if we waited, we're 2 years down the road before we even talk about this. So with the proposal that you have on the screen, a $10 increase for the license, a $50 for the permit, and a $25 for the spring and fall turkey permits, we anticipate approximately $2 million in additional revenue. But the reason I'm presenting this and add this today is I want to say we just got an assessment for the state police radio system that's $599,000 per year, in addition to our lease that we already pay that's $250,000 per year. We are working hard to solve that problem. That's a huge issue for us. So we're getting an unknown bill, and that's in statute. And so we need to work this out. We can talk about inflation, but everybody in the room knows about it. The legislature is proposing a 4% and a 2% raise for state employees. And again, obviously we support that, but we got to move forward. So I'm here today and I can share, I'll tell you, in Kansas, you can harvest 2 deer for $605. You can harvest 1 turkey for $200. So our prices are fairly equitable, and we're one of the few states that don't receive an appropriation. So also keep that in mind. When we're not appropriated by the state, it does affect our license prices. So we're equitable, but we're also not getting state appropriations, and that is a huge conversation. So we want to maintain cheap licenses, and so this recommendation, it comes from me personally. I've even had members of the General Assembly that said they would like to legislate these increases, and so part of this too is us to say, let us be diplomatic. Let's work through the sportsmen to do this. And so I can give you a lot of other numbers, but again, we do believe we could generate somewhere close to $2 million. But I would like to revisit in our future working groups about how we can help our non-residents to receive value-added product, and maybe not the days of field, but that's just something we need to work through. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer those.
I have a comment. A lot of folks in my district live close to a state line and hunt on both sides of the state line, so it affects them whether they live in Kentucky and then have to buy non-resident license in Tennessee or vice versa. One of the things they have asked me about multiple times is, would there be a way that in Kentucky that we could have what Illinois has, which is a hunt your own land option. Keep in mind, a lot of these folks grew up in Kentucky on a small farm and now live just over the line in Tennessee. What Illinois does is they basically allow you to hunt your own land only for deer or for turkey for half the cost of a non-resident license and permit. I think that's a fair thing, and Rich said we need to revisit this in the future. that would be one of the areas that I would like to revisit, maybe having a hunt your own land option. But that being said, I support this, and I'll make a motion that we accept this.
Before we have a motion, is there any other comments?
Two questions I have for you, Commissioner. What's the percentage of out-of-state hunting license or hunters do we have? Because I'm asked this by a lot of hunters in Kentucky. Do you know the percentage of out-of-staters that are hunting Kentucky?
So this is interesting, and that's a great question. So in 21, we had 34,000 non-resident licensed sales, and in 23, 37,321. So we are consistently a destination state.
Is that
And
fishing
so,
and hunting?
This is just hunting. So fishing is much more substantial than that. But roughly, we're going to say that it's about 10%. It would be pretty close. And so, again, we're on an annual basis, we're losing resident hunting and we're increasing on non-resident hunting. And that's just, that's not necessarily normal across the nation. And that's a compliment to the resources we have in Kentucky and the prices that we have maintained for many years.
My second part of that question, and it's a kind of a parallel question, and it may be a little off of the subject of the license increases. Do we have any way of knowing or finding out or surveying the amount of, here it comes for Western Kentucky guys, how much land is leased to out-of-state hunters? I know that's a sore subject with a lot of the hunters in Kentucky because I get calls about it all the time. There's really no way for us to know the number of leases. I wish there was, because I get asked that question a lot, and it's a great concern of hunters. Are we leasing up our Kentucky land to out-of-staters? And Western Kentucky is probably, from Bowling Green West is the one that's those guys, I get more calls from those guys, and I say, I have no way of knowing, and I don't believe at this point the department does, but it would be a great wonder if there was some way we could work out for those asking how much land is leased by out-of-state hunters.
I will say in my district, I think the majority of lands that's leased are leased to in-state. A lot of those are leased to in-state, not out-of-state. Not everybody in-state has the place they want to hunt. They go and lease a place that they want. So there's lots of leasing going on to in-state folks too.
So I guess that would be my, if we're going to look at this subject again down the road, would be neat to kind of see if we could find out, and I don't know how you do it, to the amount that's leased to out-of-staters. Okay, that's my only other question. Thank you, Commissioner.
Any other questions?
Then I second the motion. If there are no further questions, I second the motion made by Dr. Floyd.
All right, we have a first and a second. Mr. Secretary, when you get a moment.
Commissioner Floyd.
Aye.
Commissioner Cecil.
Aye.
Jerry Farrell. Aye. Commissioner Horn.
Aye.
Commissioner Kleiner.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Excellent. All right, the next item on the agenda is a personal service contract.
Yes, regarding that, I would like to make a motion to allow the chair to start negotiations regarding this personal service contract.
Okay. Is there any questions? All right, I would entertain a motion.
That's my motion.
Yes. I mean a second, I apologize. Mr. Farrell?
Commissioner Floyd.
Aye.
Commissioner Cecil.
Aye.
Jerry Farrell. Aye. Commissioner Horn.
Aye.
Commissioner Clenard.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. So that's all that we have under our action items for today. So the next up is we're going to go right into our discussion items. And first up on the discussion items is increase selected deer hunting opportunities in Zone 1 and 2 counties and statewide for youths and winter hunters for the 2025 season. and I believe
I'd like to
this is
speak with this.
Dr. Floyd.
Yeah, this is actually, I just noticed that this has been miswritten. My proposal is that we expand early youth firearm season for deer hunting for 9 consecutive days, beginning the second Saturday in October, and that we expand early muzzleloader deer season, that would be for adults, for those same 9 consecutive days. This is not one of them 9 days, the other 7 days. They would be at simultaneously, so that you could hunt with your kid. And that for the adult portion, I would suggest, I would like to amend this to be that would take place during the in the CWD zone only, CWD surveillance zone only. The youth portion statewide, adult portion CWD surveillance zone only. That will blend in with the hunter first approach that our hunters have asked for at the CWD forum. It'll give an opportunity to maybe for adults to take a few more deer in the surveillance zone so that we can test more deer. And I think hunters in my district agree with this and would like to have this. It does not affect, for the adult portion, it does not affect any other district, just the first district. And so our hunters have sent several emails saying that they would like to have this. I think it makes sense as far as trying to get more kids involved and trying to harvest more deer in an area that's terribly overpopulated. So I would certainly rather see our hunters harvest these deer than what's going on in Missouri and Tennessee now, where they have essentially snipers coming in and taking excess deer. Let's give our hunters the chance to take these deer. So.
Does anybody have any questions about Dr. Floyd's discussion item?
I guess I do. I understand your desire here, Dr. Floyd. I wanted to ask, I guess, put a little pressure on Ben's here. Ben Robinson, as to how he thinks that might affect. The only complaint that I've heard from anybody across the state is the possibility of exhausting deer from having much of October in a season and then into November. So, have you gotten any remarks from the general public, or have you got any thing to say concerning the length of the 9-day or the season? Certainly, I'm in total agreement that getting the youth involved, and I'm in agreement with the zone. I mean, with the CWZD zone. Excuse me, trying to eliminate some of those does over there. But I wondered what you thought about, or what the department thought about the deer season being extended for that length of time. Because that's the only thing I've heard from the general public is they're concerned about exhausting, running deer to death October and November.
Yeah, the comments I've heard are really, it's pretty divided. There's some in support and there's some in opposition of this. You know, when you're looking at it from a deer management perspective, we welcome the opportunity to harvest more deer in Zone 1 counties and even Zone 2s to help keep those in check. I think the compromise of having this in the CWD surveillance zone is a good compromise. It's a hunter's first approach and allows us to hopefully get some more deer harvested and get some more samples collected early in the season. So I do think that's a good compromise. But there is competition among the calendar there, and you have other groups in the woods that time of year, and hunter orange requirements. I know there's some enforcement discussions that go along with this as well. So it's a complex issue. There's a lot of sides to consider, but when you're looking at it from a deer management perspective, it's a good opportunity to get some more deer harvested.
Rich?
So a good point that's been brought up multiple times about this, and obviously we'll look at a calendar and see how we can fit it in, but thinking about kids and youth hunters and the potential of them being in the field on fall break. You know, typically we do focus on Saturday and Sunday, and I think if that could fit in with extended youth season, it is hit or miss, as Dr. Floyd pointed out yesterday when we chatted. That, I mean, schools do it different weeks, but hypothetically, if it's in the first 2 weeks of October, you're going to catch a lot of kids that would be out of school, and I think that's a big win for not only kids but for the department to to have that opportunity and to speak to my family personally, it's difficult for us to do some things on Saturday and Sunday, just the nature of my household. And so that weekday would be great, and I've got one moving out of the youth really soon. But anyway, not a personal thing, but I think it's a good consideration thinking about fall break.
In my district, I've heard concerns on excess pressure on the deer herd in October. You can pattern deer a little bit easier in October than you can when the rut hits. So that is a concern that I've heard in my district.
We had Jerry and then Carl.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Also, I got a few phone calls on the same thing that you guys are expressing here now. Mr. Farrell, I'm just texting you to say that I'm generally opposed to the proposed increased deer gun season in October, but I do support increased opportunity for getting kids out in the field. So it's back and forth. I got a lot of that, and I just wanted to let people know that as well. So
This would not be modern gun.
would not be modern gun.
Would not be modern gun.
Well, the youth would, right?
Youth would be modern gun.
Youth would, yeah. The adult portion would not be.
And the adult portion's only limited to zone, or the CWD
Right,
zone.
adult portion's only CWD zone. Youth portion would be modern gun. We've got over 1 million deer. Over 1 million deer. The big challenge in the future is going to be recruiting folks into hunting to manage our deer herd. The only way you can manage a deer herd is with a firearm of some sort. You can't manage it with bow. If you think you can, you're deluding yourselves. So we're going to have to figure out a way to harvest more deer. To me, the clear way is to try to get youth involved and to try to make a way that adults can hunt with youth, and maybe that way bring people in. Some of the happiest days, I've said this before, some of the happiest days of my life, and there weren't many of these days, was when I got to hunt with my dad. That's what we're talking about.
So,
Is that where you got the honey bun addiction?
The honey bun addiction.
For those of you that don't know, I'm friends with Dr. Robin, and he posts a lot of pictures of his honey bun as he sits in the deer stand throughout the hunting season. So
I'm gone to rehab now.
yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we pass this discussion item on to a vote item, knowing that everybody's got input from the sportsmen. I'd like to hear some more from sportsmen in that interim of time, and so I move that we move that discussion item on to a voting item next time.
All right. Is there a second for that?
Hold on, are we talking about the adult portion extension only in the CWD zone?
Correct.
Is that what we're talking about here? Because that's not listed in this discussion item.
Yeah.
So,
That's the adult portion would only be in CWD zone. The youth portion would be statewide.
And Carl, that was how you meant for your
Yes, as he had amended the correction for the CWD zone here, adult, not statewide. So the amended portion that he provided us, I'd like to pass that on as a voting item, knowing that we all are getting, and I appreciate all the input from sportsmen concerning those issues. I think universally everybody wants to do everything they can for youth, but I think the concern is about the extended season through October that I've heard. So with knowing that everybody's else getting that information too, I think we just ought to move it on to a voting item, but be listening to sportsmen's input, and I've gotten a lot on that issue. So all of them for doing everything for the youth. And I think this going to the CWD zone only for the adults might calm down that worry a little bit. But I make the motion that we move that with the amendments that he made on the CWD zone on to vote next time. So to kind of clarify.
Does that clarify what you're
Mr.
looking for?
Cecil's concern.
All right. So we got a motion to move it forward. Is there a second?
I'll say.
Second by Mr. Cecil. And so we'll need to do a roll call on that.
Dr. Floyd,
Aye.
Commissioner Cecil,
Aye.
Mr. Farrell's aye. Commissioner Horn, Commissioner Kennard.
I vote aye.
And then just a point of clarification on the discussion items, are we able to just do a show of hands to move it forward since it's not a...
Yeah, may I speak?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, what we tried to do when I was sitting in your seat was on discussion items, unless there's an objection,
Okay.
then the motion just move it on unless there's objection. We didn't take a roll count.
Okay.
If somebody made the motion to move it on and nobody objected, then we just went on. So.
All right. I did read through the Robert's Rules of Orders for Dummies book that the department sent me as part of the chair position, so messed that up. It's the third mistake I've made for the meeting, so if anybody's keeping track, I know what the over-under is on that.
You could put it to a vote each time, but I just asked with the permission of the rest of the commission, if they did not object to it, if somebody said move it on, if there was no objection to it, we just moved it on. It's kind of a unanimous agreement.
Okay, that's what I thought. We'll do that moving forward. Thank you. All right, so the next discussion item is recommendations for the 2025 bear hunting season. And for this, we're going to have Dr. Hast and Ben Robinson.
Thank you, Mr.
Good
Chairman.
morning, gentlemen. Always a pleasure.
So I'll introduce this, and then we'll have Dr. Hast here that can address any questions that you may have. But this would be to amend 301 KAR 2300, Black Bear Seasons and Requirements. And the proposal is to establish a 14-day early archery and crossbow season in Clinton and Wayne counties to begin on the third Saturday in September and coincide with the opening of deer crossbow season.
All right, gentlemen, this is the attachment D2 in your packets on page 11. Are there any questions about what we're trying to do here?
This would eliminate the need for depredation tags is what our hope is.
Hopefully, yeah.
Make a motion, we move it forward for a vote.
All right, so we got a motion. Is there a second to that?
I think it's just moving forward as an
Yeah,
action item at the next
If there are
meeting.
no objections.
Is there any objections? All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, got it right. Awesome. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, the next item. Let's see here. Is it prohibit use of aircraft, drones, helicopters, airplanes, etc. for taking fish or wildlife, and use of drones, UAS, on WMAs and public hunting areas? And then for this, we're going to have Colonel McCreary and Ben Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
We're requesting discussion to promulgate a new regulation to prohibit taking of fish and wildlife with aircraft. Specifically, this regulation would include comporting with federal law with respect to prohibition of taking with aircraft and prohibit any use and aspect of take per wildlife definition currently existing, KRS 150-010, exempt the department and its agents conducting research, communications, enforcement, and other authorized management activities, and allow for authorized landowners, their agents engaged in lawful wildlife damage control activities, and commercial fishers for use in locating or removing invasive carp.
Question. Why wouldn't this apply to private land for taking as well?
The take it's for private and public.
Okay, so we need to clarify that.
Yeah, it does. It says
Does it say
WMAs in
private?
public lands, so.
Yes, if you will clarify, we apologize. It is for private and public with respect to take.
All right, does everybody understand that's for private and public?
That's one question I have.
Any other questions? No? All right, so if there's no other questions or comments, then if you're interested in moving this on to an action item in the next meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So be it. Thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman, Colonel, can I ask you are you hearing very much public comment from this? Are you all getting much from the public concerning drones?
With respect to take, not much at all. I haven't received any regarding take. I will add that we did research surrounding states, which would be Ohio, West Virginia, Tennessee, Missouri, then extended into Iowa as well, and they all have regulations, KRS, regarding the prohibition of take.
And I think I asked you about federal. We've checked to make sure we're not crossing over any federal guidelines or federal laws that we would be in disagreement with.
No, sir, not with respect to take. In fact, U.S. Fish and Wildlife also has a law that prohibits take with aircraft.
Awesome. All right, moving on. The next item on discussion is required identification on cellular or wireless trail cameras on WMA's public hunting areas. And this is going to be, oops, you two again.
Yes, sir, thank you. We're requesting discussion to amend 301 KR 3010, public use of wildlife management areas, to add the requirement for all trail cameras used on WMAs and public hunting areas to be externally labeled with its owner's customer identification number. And again, this just coincides with the existing regulation for trot lines, set lines, deer stands, etc.
So the thing has to be on it is their license number.
It is, yes, sir.
Yeah. So every person that gets a license has the FW number, I believe, and that number is really only searchable by law enforcement database. So you're not going to be putting your own personal information out there for somebody to look it up and get your information, but that information would be available for our game wardens to review and see that.
Yes, sir, and I'll just add, it helps us with abandonment, theft issues, and then if we need to identify cameras, if it's involved in any kind of criminal activity and so on.
Yeah, and so the main thing would really be is if it wasn't on there, then that camera would be removed if it was found without that. So we need to make sure that you guys are putting that stuff on there when you're in field to keep track of those cameras and so we know whose they are. So are there any other?
I have had folks contact me about this same issue and just saying they didn't want anything personal on there. And I said, well, we can just have a unique number that we give you anyway. But the caveat there is you got to answer the call when we call you. You got to be available for us to get a hold of you. So anyway, they generally agree with what you just said.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if there's no other questions, we'll see. We can take a show of, or signify, we'll move this forward by signifying yes.
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 Any opposed? All right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, guys. Okay, next thing on the agenda under discussion is going to be recommendations for the 2025 elk season. Here's Dr. Haas back up here again.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, again, I'll introduce this, and we'll have Dr. Haas here available for comment. And this will be to amend 301 KAR 2132, elk hunting seasons, permits, zones, and requirements. And I'll read through the list, but a lot of these this is a pretty extensive list that we can discuss. That a lot of these come directly from surveys from hunters, postseason elk surveys over the years that Dr. Haas has compiled a lot of this input. A lot of these comments are very consistent. We see these year in and year out. So this is an effort to try to clean some of these things up and hopefully provide a better experience for our elk hunters. So the first recommendation would be to open Paul Van Boeven WMA and Fish Trap Lake WMA to elk hunting. Next would be to move the opening day of Cal Firearm Week 2 to the first Saturday in January to alleviate overlap with Christmas and Christmas Eve holidays. Prohibit cellular trail cam use during elk hunting seasons. Prohibit drone use for hunting or scouting of elk. Clean up baiting regulations to prohibit hunting over a baited area within 30 days of bait being removed. Draw elk hunting units during the initial draw and amend the loyalty redraw to fit the new drawing system. And landowner elk permits provided in exchange for public hunting access can only be used on the property enrolled in the public access agreement. So with that, we're happy to entertain any questions or conversation.
Yeah. Gentlemen, so this is going to be attachment D2 in your packet where it lists out all the information here. Paul, you have a question?
Yeah, I got a couple questions. On the bait, didn't we do something in the past to try to clean that up once before? So was that not successful?
We might have. That might have been before.
I thought we did. We did that once before, but I commend you for finally getting that fixed. So if I'm reading this correctly, you can scout for elk all the way up to the opening day of a cell camera, but you can't use it during the season.
Correct.
I guess that's the only one that I have an issue with or disagree with, because you have a lot of out-of-state people doing it on their own. You don't know the area, so you're going to put them at a, and I understand there's pros and cons to it. You've got some people abusing it, but you've also taken away a resource for other people that don't know the area.
Yep.
So I guess that's, I would recommend moving them all forward except for the cell cameras. Prohibit sale or trail cameras during elk hunting season.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I also had a question about prohibiting cellular cameras. Now, that's anywhere in the elk zone, is that right?
It would be.
Okay,
Yep.
Curry County, you're not going to open to elk hunting this year, right? You're not going to be able to kill an elk down there, but you can't use a camera during that time in that zone?
We could specify. I think we could specify it open.
Because there's a lot of deer hunters in McCreary County. As down where I am, there's a lot of deer hunters in that zone, but that zone's not going to be open to hunting, and you're going to prohibit a cell camera in McCreary County. So
Yep.
I'd say in the zones signify or clarified for being able to hunt in, not just the elk zone itself.
I think with archery season going on, it's going to be a law enforcement nightmare. You're never going to be able to tell who's saying that they're deer hunting, archery deer hunting, or who's elk hunting.
Absolutely. Yep.
Kind of brutal.
Any other comments, gentlemen?
I'm just wondering, haven't done this, so I don't know that much about it. But does the cell phone camera, I mean the SD card or whatever you put in the camera, does that actually help them see what's going on to give them an advantage? And how much of an advantage does that allow them to have?
When you're talking about cellular camera, you're talking about instant picture to your phone.
Yep.
So I assume it's there because it's kind of an unfair chase and advantage on elk.
Yep. We felt that for a while. Understand the nuances, understand their use. I mean, I use plenty for deer and support that. I think it's a distinct advantage for elk particularly, especially during the rut.
Any other comments? So Paul's made a motion that we move this on, except he wants to eliminate the prohibit cellular trail camera use during the elk hunting season section of it. Is that correct?
Yes.
So if there's no other comments, I would like to, if you're interested in moving this forward with that removed from it, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Greg? So that's going to be 4-1. So that will move on to an action item at the next meeting. All right, moving on. Modifications to the permitting criteria, holding criteria, and area requirements for multiple permit holders and facility types. And on this, we're going to have.
I'll help you out, Mr. Chairman. You've got
Ben
myself
Robinson and
Ms.
Laura Palmer.
Palmer.
Yep, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I was just looking for who was saying it here.
Absolutely. So, again, as written, this would be to amend 301 KAR 2041. But as we've dug into this a little more, it could impact some others as well. It could impact 2081 and 5022. But essentially what this request was, it was brought to our attention that previous regulation changes inadvertently eliminated the ability of smaller acreage foxhound training enclosures to legally operate. So we've been working with the Kentucky Houndsmen, with law enforcement, to create some requirements for these facilities to allow them to legally operate. And I'll hand it over to Ms. Palmer. She's got a kind of a high-level outline of some of the topics that we're looking at to set up this new framework that we've already pitched to our friends in the Houndsman group and with help of law enforcement.
Right, so we are working with our wildlife health program and for disease concerns related to foxhound training enclosures, also with our law enforcement division and Kentucky Houndsman Association, and we will work with the enclosure operators also to kind of all get together and develop some recommendations to cover just some of the broad topics we've identified so far are disease prevention. This would involve transportation and holding of fox and coyote, record keeping and reporting requirements, disease response and surveillance. This would involve quarantine and disease testing procedures if there was an outbreak of disease within an enclosure. Minimum enclosure size, which would involve an acceptable acreage for this activity. Then also kind of along with this, stalking density of fox and coyote and hounds during events. Let's see, acclimation and running periods for wild game. And then finally, streamlining of permitting as far as number of permits needed. And this would, of course, make it more efficient and easier for the permit holder to acquire a single permit instead of multiple permits. And then also for the department as well, as far as processing permits, staff time, and so forth. And then we would like to combine all of the regulations related to foxhound training enclosures into one regulation, just for ease of everyone involved as far as reference and enforcement, and just needing to, find the information in one regulation instead of multiple regulations. And so that's kind of the general overview. I think our plan is to meet with the various groups in the next 3 to 4 weeks, and then come up with a list of recommendations, which we would then provide to you all in advance of the next meeting for vote.
So with that, I'm not sure, this being a discussion item, how you want to address this, if this needs to be tabled so that we come back with those specific recommendations, or if you want us to bring those to you ahead of, an action item vote.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
My comment to that, Ben, would be if we got, because that's a lot of information, if we got all that information 30 days prior to the meeting, if we get that 3 days prior to the meeting, there's certainly no way that we can get input from the sportsman, nor can we get an idea of what we think of if it's 3 days before. Not to say that stuff doesn't get to us in a timely fashion, but that's a lot of material. So if you all don't think we could get it in 30 days prior to the meeting for a vote, then I'd say it'd probably be best to table it, unless there's some terrible need to do it right away.
I don't think it would be a problem at all to get it to you 30 days in advance of the next meeting. I think we could have it even before that, most likely.
Well, I just know that if there's a considerable volume of things to read concerning that, it's kind of unfair to ask for a vote 3 days if we got that material 3 days before we set in here. It's kind of up to the rest of either the chairman or the rest of the people whether you want to table it and give you a little more time to get it together and discussed, or whether you want to get it to everybody maybe 30 days prior to a meeting, because if you get it 2 or 3 days, there's a lot going on with everybody for 2 or 3 days before. So that's just my comment. I'm not making a motion that we table it. I'm just saying, unless we could get it in a timely fashion, I'd suggest we table that.
Is there any other questions or comments about that? So Carl is suggesting that we table this discussion item until...
I would suggest that it be tabled until the next meeting. That's only 3 months, unless they say it's going to make some big difference here right away. I'd table it unless you all are comfortable with at least 30 days. But even at that, that's not giving sportsmen much time to peruse the changes that you want to make, so they're not going to get an adequate time. We might have an adequate time to read it, but they're not going to have an adequate time to evaluate it.
My question would be, if we table it, the discussion item, will there be affected, training areas that aren't going to be able to proceed with the training that they're wanting to do as a result of us waiting on that?
The challenge.
Yes, that would occur. And I spoke with Mr. Johnson yesterday with the Housing Association. We are optimistic that we could make it happen and meet with the groups, barring any unforeseen circumstances. I'm trying not to be too optimistic, but I think we could. It's doable that we could do that.
Then I won't ask that it be tabled if they think they can get that done. And you're already working with the groups that it immediately affects. Right. So it's not like a statewide issue. It's
right.
It's
and
a small number.
There are a handful of enclosures that
are permitted. I applaud you
yeah.
for working with the very people that's going to affect the most instead of a statewide thing. So if I would suggest if they can get that to everybody within 30 days of the time of the meeting, then I'd proceed with a vote on the next meeting.
Sure. And if they weren't able to do that, then when it's an action item on the next meeting, we could table it at that
That's
point
right.
if we wanted
That's right.
to give you a chance to keep moving forward with it.
That's a good point.
Paul, did you have anything additional?
Yeah, I was just going to say what Dr. Kleiner said, just challenge you to try to have something by the end of March then, and that way we have 2 months to get public input and comment.
That is our goal, yes.
Good.
Great. All right. Good. We'll keep that moving forward then, as long as there's no other objection. I would ask that you signify if you'd like to move that on to next month's meeting as an action item by signifying with an aye. Any opposed? All right, so be it. All right, so now we're moving on. We have the new business items, and we do have 5 items under new business. Considering that there's no discussion that happens under new business, and that happens all under discussion, and there are items that are going to be on the agenda, and we're going to have the 30, 30, and 30 before we do any action item. I would entertain a motion that we accept the new business items and move them all forward to next month's meeting as a discussion item.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I just have one question.
Okay.
I am proposing to table that modify reciprocal agreements. Colonel McCurry and I are working with other states. We're optimistically hoping we'd be ready to go, but I don't. I think unless we can have. Hopefully, we'll have the discussion points by that meeting, but I'm not certain. So I guess we can leave it as a discussion item, and then if we're ready to go, we'll have that information for you at that point.
Leave it as new business. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. We need to keep it as new business, but I guess maybe if we have the verbiage changes that we want by the discussion by June, then I guess it could stay a discussion item. So
Okay.
sorry to intervene.
Yeah. No, that's okay. Yeah, and then if we don't have what we need by the June meeting, then we can
table it then.
table it at that point. Paul, did you have something else?
I just want to ask you, there's no commentary under commission bylaws. What was the new business with the bylaws?
I'll be glad to handle that. Paul, that was the one I was going to lob to you about making a modification
Okay, yes,
to
sir.
the bylaws.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would like to hear a little discussion on the public dove field prohibiting decoy.
Sure.
Can I hear a little of that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, our thought there, we've got a working group, a dove field working group within the Wildlife Division that is really working hard to streamline our dove hunting both on public and private lands and just make it better. And one of the real big concerns that we've heard over and over again with the use of decoys, especially the spinning decoys, is a safety issue because that's probably the #1 creator of low-flying birds across these heavily used public dove fields.
Well, they work.
So they work, and so one, it's a safety concern. Two, what we're seeing with a lot of our public fields, our public fields, they get a lot of use. They're really, really loved, and we're having folks come in basically under the cover of darkness or right at the beginning of the day and putting out these huge spreads, almost as if they were waterfowl hunting, of doves, and just locking down a whole portion of a field, and it's really eliminating people from having a chance to get in and use these fields. So those are the two main points there.
So if they come out and set the decoys out early, they feel like that's their area they can hunt.
Right.
And they're taking up too much of the area.
That's one
with
concern.
decoys.
The main concern really is safety and trying to eliminate low-flying birds, and that's why we limited it to the month of September, because that's when these fields get the most use. Once we get out of September, the fields aren't used as heavily. You could use your
I'd
decoys
say
in.
after the first 2 weeks, the fields aren't used very much.
Right. So there would still be opportunity to use those later in the season, just not during that heavy use period.
Does that satisfy what you're looking for?
Yeah, I wanted to hear why. just to make sure.
That's fine. Well, and again, we're going to make a motion to move all these to discussion items, so we'll be able to discuss it further at the next meeting. But if there's anything else on the list that you guys would like time to talk about now, we have time to do that. Otherwise, I'd like to entertain the motion that we move all the new business items to discussion item.
Move.
Second?
Yes.
All right. Everybody in favor of doing so, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So be it. Move all the new business items to discussion item at the next meeting. Speaking of the next meeting, probably a good time to go ahead and try to clarify a date for that, gentlemen. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at your calendars or not. Looking at the Fridays in June, we got June 7th, the 14th, and the 21st. I do not know with the Flag Day being on the 14th if that's going to present any problems with the office being open or not. I don't know that, so I'm asking if, are you guys
I will
open?
tell you,
on
the
that day?
21st is by far the best for me.
The 21st?
21st.
Does the 21st work for the rest of the commission? Okay, so we will go ahead and set the next quarterly commission meeting date for the 21st of June. And then I'd actually, at this point, I would like to suggest that we take a 10-minute recess because I need to use the restroom. And additionally, when we come back, I would like to move public comments to the next section before we then go into a closed section and then come back from that. So that being said, I'd like to actually take a 10-minute recess. If you guys could be back by 10:13, we'll get started back again. Thank you. Back from our brief restroom break there. We're getting ready to move forward with the meeting, and we were having our public comment section. But before we start that, Dr. Robin Floyd has asked to speak, so I'd like to turn the floor over to him.
First, I would like to address some concerns that I've had from fishing guides. Most of them are in my area. They recently received a letter from the department regarding regs that we had put through. These regulations did go through the 3-month, 6-month, 9-month process that we have, but apparently a lot of these guys weren't aware of it, and some of the things that we are asking them to do that they find onerous and they find would be counterproductive for what for them making a living. And so what I have done is I asked Mr. Jenkins, Gabe Jenkins, to look over these and see if the things that we're asking them, and in conjunction with Mr. Dreves, and to see if that's information that we really need to have and that we're going to act on. Because if we're not going to act on it, then if we're not going to do anything with it, we don't need to be collecting that with it being onerous for them to give us that. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure that our fishing guides understood that we take their concerns seriously, and we're working on that. That's all.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. All right, so we will now move to our public comment section, and we have Lisa Jackson. She's going to do that for us.
Thank you, sir.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Before I get to the comments, I need to read our public comments guidelines, as is also added to the agenda for the public comment procedure. Public comments regarding new business items or discussion items on the agenda may be submitted by email to fw.publicaffairs@ky.gov. Emailed comments received by 5 p.m. Eastern 2 days preceding the meeting date will be distributed to all commission members on the day prior to the meeting and read by a staff during the commission meeting for up to 3 minutes total per commenter, time permitting, and at the discretion of the commission chair. Emailed comments allow commission members adequate time for consideration and correspondence if necessary, and they allow the commission to conduct business more efficiently during meetings. Note, a commenter's contact information is not required for emailed comments, but will be necessary if a response is requested, and other than name and affiliation, it will not be publicly disclosed if provided. Anonymous comments will be distributed to the commission members but may not be read during the meeting. The commission chair reserves the right to not read publicly any comments that are libelous, profane, derogatory of others, not pertaining to business items on the meeting agenda, or redundant with other comments. Questions will receive an email response. Commenters should include commission meeting in their email subject line and include in their email message their first and last names, Kentucky county of residence or state of resident if non-resident, and organizational affiliation and position if they are an officer or official representative for a particular organization. In-person attendees of meetings may also request to speak up to 3 minutes total per commenter on new business items or discussion items on the agenda, but will be required to sign in on the public comment request form on the table at the meeting room entrance by 9 a.m. Eastern. On the day of the meeting, and provide name, county, and state of residence, organization represented, and official position applicable, and agenda items being addressed. Commenters who speak in person will not have their emailed comments read publicly at the meeting and are asked to avoid voicing comments that are redundant with others speaking prior to them during the allotted public comments time frame. I will now read emailed comments up to 3 minutes per person on new business or discussion items we received. There will be 3 that I'll be reading. The first one is from Sean Alizer from Madison County. I hunt in Anderson County, Zone 1, Kentucky. This is in reference to the proposal from Commissioner Floyd in reference to expanding early muzzleloader deer season and youth hunt with mentors. In my opinion, we should totally support this for the youth aspect and also the adult mentor aspect. The mentor getting a little extra chance before modern gun season, and also the youth for getting extra time in teaching. The youth will be able to spend more time afield. However, this should be for any deer, not just antlerless. This would give the mentor adult a chance to harvest a nice buck before modern gun starts. She can then have some options and not just antlerless. Also, this should be for any muzzleloader, traditional or inline. In the December meeting, Commissioner Farrell mentioned this to be a flintlock-only season for the mentor. In my opinion, a flintlock is a fun gun at the range and they have their place. We have to consider a couple of things. You have to take a toolbox with you when using them. Also, their place isn't in a tree. A mentor youth will use the muzzle loaders they currently have. They won't go buy another one to participate in this. Most muzzle loaders nowadays are in line of some form or fashion and 5 different brands. I'm not with any sort of organization or hunt club. I'm just a lifelong deer hunter trying to help a couple of groups out. Thanks for your time and everything you do. The next comment is from Andrew Fields, Germantown, Kentucky. I'm writing to you to express my concerns regarding the youth season being extended and displacing the early muzzleloader season. I'm a lifelong Kentucky resident, a father of 5 young children who are beginning their journeys as hunters, an avid hunter of all our state has to offer, and a blue-collar worker that works many weekends throughout the year, often when it is most inconvenient in regards to having plans to hunt and do things outdoors that are time-sensitive. All things considered, I personally feel that extending youth season would have a positive impact overall for our state. As was mentioned in the December meeting, families have countless commitments they must plan around on weekends. Thankful as we are for the youth weekends we currently have, we never seem to feel like there is nearly enough time to get everyone out in the woods for their opportunity to harvest a deer during the October youth season. October is a much better time to get the youth out as much as possible, as the weather hasn't gotten nearly as bad as it can sometimes be during the December free youth weekend. I found the weather conditions a youth hunts in their first time out can heavily dictate whether or not they wish to go out the next time they're given the opportunity. This is vital, as our youth are our future, and getting them involved and keeping them involved is the only way our culture will survive. I do not, however, feel it is a good move to extend the youth hunt at the cost of pushing our muzzleloader season another weekend to October. At that point, we are subjecting our deer herd to firearm seasons of one sort or another the majority of October and November. Our herd receives more than its fair share of pressure during the modern rifle season and doesn't need any days added to it. The muzzle loaders of today are not what they were in the past. They're capable of effective shooting distances further than most hunters are capable of with center fire rifles. This is why many western states have restrictions on muzzle loaders such as open sights, no inlines, no sabots, etc. Pushing that season into another weekend in October essentially is adding another weekend of modern firearm season. I like the idea of the current muzzleloader season and youth weekend running concurrently and maintaining just 2 weekends of firearm hunting for deer in October, as the weekends are when most people are hunting. The December muzzleloader season is already 9 days long, beginning just 2 weeks after a 16-day rifle season. I do not feel we'll be losing anything by allowing youth to be in the woods during the muzzleloader season in October, but gaining opportunities for our youth. Personally, it is either or for me when taking my children hunting. I'm focused on the safety of having a firearm with us for them to use and not taking another for myself, no matter which season is in. However, that is a decision people will have to make on their own, but at least if the seasons are in at the same time, they will have the option to focus on their youth, have muzzleloader of their own with them, or hunt without a youth hunt that weekend. Poachers are going to poach, and dads are going to take rifles with their kids and or tag deer under the kids' names during these seasons. We're setting these seasons for the law-abiding citizens that will do the right thing, not the outlaws who will ignore the regulations either way. If increased doe harvest is desired, maybe we should consider some of the current youth muzzleloader or rifle seasons to be set as doe only for the portion of their season to eliminate the added expense of bonus doe tags to residents of Kentucky.
Man, I didn't think you were going to get all that in 3 minutes. That was pretty good.
I had like another sentence. He thanks everybody.
Yeah. Go ahead and finish that last sentence. You got that far.
To eliminate the added expense of bonus doe tags to the residents of Kentucky, or to make it a requirement that the thousands of non-resident hunters that come to hunt big bucks in our state earn their buck tag by harvesting a doe first. Thank you for your time.
Great.
And the last one is from Matt Dalton of Casey County, and he has a couple of comments on different proposals. I would first off like to express my gratitude for what the department has done for the state and its wildlife. I have traveled to many other states, and I think Kentucky is one of the best for balancing access, opportunity, and satisfaction for all its land users. I'm contacting the Commission today to express my feelings on some of the upcoming meeting topics. I would also like to see any trail cameras, tree stands, etc. have a tagging requirement similar to trapping, listing the name of the owner. I feel like too many things are left out and forgotten. I'm in favor of banning drones to take game and use on public lands. I was witness to the effectiveness of this tactic on a hunt a few years ago. Game was easily located. This is definitely not fair chase. I'm in favor of expanding early muzzleloader season in Zone 1 and 2. I would love to see either sex harvested, but if it could at least just have an extra antlerless harvest, it would greatly help the harvest numbers of Zone 1 and 2, in my opinion. I'm in favor of expanding the spring squirrel season. It's an underutilized season and it would increase opportunity for those that participate in it without hurting the population. I'm in favor of increasing non-resident license and tag fees. I hunt other states and we are definitely on the cheap side when it comes to non-residents. Thank you for taking the time to read this and I appreciate all that you do. That's it.
Is that it from the ones that were posted online?
Yes, sir.
And again, I just would like to remind everybody that if you do have a comment, there is a way to go about going online and submitting those comments, such as the gentlemen have done so today. So in future meetings, you can do that as well. Just direct yourself to the website and you can put it in under the public comment section. So now we will go ahead. We have two people that have signed up this morning to speak to us. Both of them are wanting to speak to us about the expanded season opportunities. So the first one that is asked to speak is Trey Webb. Trey, if you could come up and please state your name and county of residence, and if you're speaking on behalf of yourself or if you're representing any other sportsmen's groups.
I'm Trey Webb out of Meade County, mainly representing myself. Here on the deer seasons mainly. As a processor, my family has owned and operated a processor, deer processing, for about 50 years now. They was probably processing deer before it was legal, but that's here nor there. I see no issues with expanding it, but I think the objective that you're all trying to achieve on killing more deer is going to be fruitless. I think if you ask a lot of your processors, those are the guys who interact with most of your hunters as they bring in deer, I don't think you're going to see an increase. Youth season is 2 days, and it's always within a handful of deer every year on what is killed and brought to us. Early muzzleloaders the same is a wild card. It's 100% weather driven. It can be anywhere from 20 to 150 deer. And it's 100% weather driven. I don't know if adding 5 more days of antlerless is going to increase deer. Like several of you said, with kids and everything, it's hard to get your hunting in. So, if you was going to increase the doe kill to maintain populations in 1s and 2s, I would look at, the firearm season in general. As a processor, we've never filled up through the modern gun season, but we've come close, and that's mainly because other processors do. We'll process 2,000 plus deer a year, most of them through the gun season as the numbers show, yet 80% of them show up the first 3 days, 4 days of season. So you talk about pressure, 16 days of continuous gun pressure. Deer don't go nocturnal, they lock down and they hide. So if that was potentially expanded into a multi-season like a lot of your western states on their elk firearm seasons and stuff like that, would that loosen the pressure and allow the deer to come out of like a lockdown and hiding to get slammed again, a few days later and maybe increase your numbers? I don't know. It's just a suggestion to maybe look at just from a processor standpoint, because, once the first 5 days of gun season's out of, the numbers just drop. We go to can't keep up to waiting for deer to show up. So, that's what I would, just a suggestion, but I don't know if you're going to achieve what you all want by adding the extra days. Youth weekend, I like that. I got 4 kids, and getting 4 deer killed in 2 days is going to be difficult once all of mine are up and hunting. So, I agree with, 9 days of youth, but I don't know if you're going to achieve extra deer through the muzzleloader that you're wanting to achieve. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Trey. Appreciate your comments. The next person that signed up to comment is Brian Mackey, and again on expanding the deer season opportunities. Brian, could you please step forward, identify yourself in the county, and if representing yourself or any other organizations?
Brian Mackey, Hardin County, Kentucky. Represent myself, but I've talked to a lot of people about the expansion of the deer, and I don't want anybody to think, take this the wrong way. I have spent a lot of hours with youth, not just my own son, but other people's children during youth seasons. But we hear a lot of talk about opportunities and opportunities. our youth have more opportunities than we do. You know, they have regular muzzleloader, they have regular rifle, they have all the opportunities we do, but they already have the 2 days of October for youth and then the 2 at the end of the year. I'm kind of in agreement with Trey that I think the timing of expanding this youth probably isn't going to really do that much. It was talked about at the last meeting, some schools won't be on fall break during that time. A lot of parents have limited vacation, so they're probably not going to be able to take off in the middle of the week in October to do that. Plus you're dealing with typically warmer weather in October. And, you know, a lot of people do take their meat to processors, but there's a lot of people that process their own meat. If we're going to add days, I think it would be more beneficial to do it in December or early January. Children are on spring break or Christmas break. A lot of parents are off during that time. The weather's cooler. So, you know, those are all things that I think would benefit if the goal is to try to get more kids out and kill more deer. You know, I'd like to commend you all for the work and the things that we try to achieve, but it seems like sometimes we start getting in this slippery slope of, well, it's for youth opportunities or it's to kill more deer. And with Senate Bill 3 popping up the other day wanting to put the department under agriculture, that makes these things a little more leery to a lot of the sportsmen out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And that is all the people that signed up today for public comment. And again, if you don't submit a comment online and you want to come to the meeting and submit a comment, all you need to do is get to the meeting ahead of time and sign up, and then it needs to make sure that your item that you're wanting to discuss is something that's on the agenda. And I encourage you to do that if you want to give us your feedback in person versus online. But all the public comments that we get ahead of time are distributed to the commission, so we get an opportunity to read and review those, as well as read off here for the meeting purposes as well. So since I moved the public comments up, we're going to go back to the next session, which is going to be moving us into closed session. And so I would ask Stephen Fields to please read whatever it is that you read there that allows us to go into closed session.
Thank you, sir. All meetings of a quorum of the members of any public agency at which any public business is discussed or at which any action is taken by the agency shall be public meetings, open to the public at all times except for specific exceptions listed in KRS 61.810 or otherwise provided for by law. The Commission has business today that will require entering into closed session. KRS 61.815 requires notice of the general nature of the business to be discussed in the closed session, the reason for the closed session, and the provision of KRS 61.810 that authorizes it to be publicly announced prior to entering closed session for most open meetings exceptions. In the proposed closed session, the Commission will discuss 2 potential acquisitions of real property via purchase. The discussions shall occur in closed session to protect the state's interest in the acquisition of land. By identifying the department's interest in the particular parcels, the general public would be alerted to the various owners' willingness to sell the properties and our intent to purchase. As such, the publicity increases the likelihood other parties may make offer on the properties. Such competing offers could increase the value of the subject properties. Alternatively, a private party could purchase property from the current owner more quickly than the Commonwealth and require the Commonwealth to pay a premium to acquire it. This closed session is authorized by KRS 61.810 under Section 1B for the potential land acquisitions. Upon an approved motion, the Commission will enter into closed session. The Commission shall not discuss any other matters, and no action shall be taken during the closed session. During the closed session, council and necessary members of staff will be present to advise the Commission.
All right, with that being said, I would entertain a motion. Carl?
Second.
Paul? So Carl's made a motion, Paul seconded it. So if you're in favor of moving to closed session, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so be it. So we will now move into closed session. We do have 2 projects to discuss. so I imagine it could take up to 30 minutes. So we will convene after that time. Thank you.
Serving people, conserving fish and wildlife. At the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, we take those words to heart. We are conservation officers, wildlife and fisheries biologists, conservation educators, engineering, IT, communication specialists, marketers, administrators, and customer service representatives. It's our mission to conserve, protect, and enhance Kentucky's fish and wildlife resources while providing outstanding opportunities for you to enjoy hunting, fishing, trapping, boating, shooting sports, wildlife viewing, and related activities. At Kentucky Fish and Wildlife, we protect the resource and public safety by enforcing hunting, fishing, and boating laws across Kentucky, provide public hunting and fishing access through the management of more than 1 million acres of natural areas and waterways, provide quality fishing opportunities for anglers close to home by annually stocking more than 5 million fish in public waters, build and maintain public boat ramps, shooting ranges, bank fishing access areas, and other public facilities, restore streams and wetlands on private and public lands using special grants, assist private landowners with fish and wildlife habitat improvement, inform and educate millions of youth and adults through education and outreach programs. Not only are we responsible for the conservation of the few dozen species in Kentucky that are hunted, fished, or trapped, we are responsible for all of our state's incredibly diverse animal species, nearly 1,000 of them. All of this is accomplished with funding through user fees and grants instead of state taxes. The majority of the department's revenue comes from the sale of licenses and permits, federal funds, excise taxes on outdoor-related equipment, and boat registrations. Hunting, fishing, and other wildlife-related recreation generate nearly $6 billion in total economic impact to the Commonwealth, supporting about 70,000 jobs. All of us at Kentucky Fish and Wildlife seek to be good stewards of the great outdoors, leaving it in better shape than we found it. Passionate and mission-focused, that's who we are. Serving people, conserving fish and wildlife resources. That's what we do.
Get him in there, Annie. Get in her, Sadie.
Get in there, Sadie.
Jeez.
There's turkeys all around him.
Double point, they're in there. There they go.
Can't think anything I'd rather do, so.
Serving people, conserving fish and wildlife. At the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, we take those words to heart. In our Engineering, Infrastructure, and Technology Division, computer programmers, engineers, skilled technicians, heavy equipment operators, administrative specialists, and project managers carry out the design, construction, and maintenance of the agency's buildings and facilities across the state, as well as manage department software and website functionality that are critical to our agency's data processing requirements. The Kentucky Fish and Wildlife website, fw.ky.gov, is visited by more than 2 million users each year. The creation and maintenance of the electronic applications, databases, and content that keeps the website operating smoothly is dependent on our highly trained computer programmers. Our IT team manages the department's hunting and fishing licensing system, telecheck and other harvest databases, and mobile platforms, working diligently to sustain and modernize technologies that improve functionality for you, the end user of our products and services. They ensure that our licensing system meets customers' needs. Engineering and maintenance staff work across the state to construct, service, and enhance the infrastructure used by hundreds of thousands of recreational participants across the Commonwealth every year. This includes roads, parking lots, buildings, shooting ranges, boat ramps, docks, and canoe and kayak launches. Often working with local governments seeking a new boating or fishing access point in their community, the EIT division provides oversight and technical guidance for the project, designs, gathers permits, and procures agency signage, leading the project from start to finish. The division currently maintains about 170 boat ramps and 24 agency-owned dams statewide. Recent projects include an accessible fishing pier at Green River Lake and a boat ramp at Shawnee Park in Louisville. Facilities updates are ongoing projects of importance because they provide functional access and spaces for the public to enjoy our natural resources, and for staff to work and interact with the public. These projects are wide-ranging in scope. Recent examples include the new archery range at Kentucky Fish and Wildlife Headquarters, the dining hall at Camp Curry, and the renovation of our Central Fisheries Annex office and laboratory. Shooting ranges, wildlife management area roads and parking lots, life jacket loaner stations, moist soil impoundments for waterfowl and other wetland wildlife, and other such facilities made for hunters, anglers, and other recreationists are built and maintained by the EIT division. This work is vital in promoting increased site accessibility and safety for folks that utilize these resources. The Engineering, Infrastructure, and Technology Division is also the home for boots on the ground maintenance staff that beautifies and maintains these properties in sun, rain, sleet, or snow. Although mowing, trash pickup, building maintenance, and unforeseen repairs are inevitably required on facilities across the state is not glamorous work, this upkeep and maintenance is an integral part of our success. We are Kentucky Fish and Wildlife's Engineering, Infrastructure, and Technology Division. We take pride in planning, constructing, maintaining, and repairing the facilities that ensure access for hunters, anglers, trappers, boaters, and wildlife watchers who reside in or visit our state. We're also focused on continuous improvement of access to information and services the department provides through technology, all to make it easier for you to enjoy your favorite outdoor activities. Passionate and mission-focused, that's who we are. Serving people, conserving fish and wildlife, that's what we do.
Serving people, conserving fish and wildlife. At the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, we take those words to heart. In our law enforcement division, conservation officers and administrative specialists carry out the agency's mission-critical enforcement and education activities.
We're going to talk to you guys for a little bit about this firearm.
Promoting public safety and appropriate use of the state's fish and wildlife resources is a division legacy that traces back more than a century. Conservation officers work tirelessly alongside our fisheries and wildlife professionals on private and public lands and waters to help restore, protect, and conserve fish and wildlife. They have been instrumental in the restoration success stories of species such as white-tailed deer, wild turkey, freshwater fishes and mussels, bald eagles, and elk. Kentucky conservation officers are sworn peace officers who enforce all laws of the Commonwealth, with a primary focus on fishing, hunting, trapping, boating, and commercial uses of fish and wildlife. They are some of the most highly trained law enforcement professionals in the nation. All recruits receive 20 weeks of basic training, 14 weeks of training in the Kentucky Fish and Wildlife Academy,
Drop it. I'm going to tase you if you don't drop that stick.
and 12 weeks of on-the-job training with a field training officer. The Law Enforcement Division's policing of commercial uses of fish and wildlife helps to protect the delicate balance between conservation and sustainable use of vital public resources. Conservation officers also pursue those who violate Kentucky's laws and thereby disregard the principles of fair chase and ethical stewardship. The poacher's illegal take of fish and wildlife steals opportunity from everyone who enjoys these animals legally.
If you come out tomorrow, any other time, get that fishing license, okay? All right, sir. Be careful.
Have a good day.
You too.
From the back roads and backwaters and all areas in between, conservation officers are committed to ensuring our outdoors are a safe place for sportsmen and women to recreate in the Commonwealth. Tips regarding suspected unlawful activities related to fish, wildlife, or boating are welcome into the Law Enforcement Division. Conservation officers investigate your tips, aiming to cut down on potential poaching or other illegal activities. Tips may be reported by phone, text, or smartphone app. To report a tip, call your local Kentucky State Police Dispatch or 1-800-25-ALERT. Text 847-411, type the keyword KFW Law, plus the details of your tip, or use the KFW Law smartphone app. It's available in your app store. Your tips often result in cases that help discourage illicit activities. Conservation officers are also deeply ingrained in their communities across the Commonwealth. From school visits to assisting with toy and food drives, or youth fishing events to hosting special hunting opportunities for youths.
We just gently press the trigger. Good job.
They are eager to assist when there is a need. When raging floods or tornadoes hit Kentucky communities, disrupting essential services and putting citizens at risk, conservation officers are among the first to be called because of our specialized training, equipment, and expertise. Our officers don't hesitate to provide emergency help to those in harm's way, even traveling outside the state to assist those affected by hurricanes or other natural disasters. They are the lead first responders on more than 2,000 miles of navigable streams and hundreds of lakes statewide. Kentucky conservation officers spend thousands of hours annually on boating enforcement, helping to ensure impaired boaters don't negatively affect the recreational use of our waterways. The environment our conservation officers work in daily also puts them in harm's way. Sadly, 10 officers have lost their lives protecting the natural resources and people of the Commonwealth. These 10 officers represent the immense dedication it takes to serve in this role, and forever reminds the public of the dangers that Kentucky conservation officers face every day. In 2014, a fallen officers memorial was dedicated on the campus of Kentucky Fish and Wildlife in Frankfort, and every year we honor those individuals that paid the ultimate sacrifice. We are the Kentucky Fish and Wildlife Law Enforcement Division. We enforce the laws and regulations pertaining to the Commonwealth's fish and wildlife resources, protecting an industry that generates $6 billion to our state's economy, from the Appalachian Mountains in the east to the Mississippi River in the west, so that these resources may be safely and sustainably enjoyed by current and future generations. Passionate and mission-focused, that's who we are. Serving people, conserving fish and wildlife, that's what we do.
Serving people, conserving fish and wildlife. At the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, we take those words to heart. Our Fisheries Division is comprised of fisheries biologists and technicians, fish hatchery managers, fisheries researchers, and administrative specialists. We focus on aquatic species and their habitats across the Commonwealth. Large lakes, vast reservoirs, small farm ponds, open flowing rivers, secluded mountain streams. Kentucky has them all. These waterways span some 215,000 surface acres of water. Public spaces that more than 250 species of aquatic animals call home. And every year, more than 500,000 people enjoy the excellent fishing and other recreational opportunities these diverse waterways afford. Conserving and enhancing these aquatic resources and providing opportunities for their public enjoyment are the two main functions of the Fisheries Division. The primary strategies we use to manage Kentucky's fisheries include habitat improvement, fisheries research, stream restoration, fish stocking, invasive species control, and management of fish populations through regulating fish harvest. Fish habitat improvement usually involves either fostering beneficial aquatic plants or placing physical structures in waterways to provide places for fish and their prey to reproduce or take cover. Most of our public lakes are decades old, and the structure of their habitats has decomposed or has been washed away over time. Providing new fish habitat in aging reservoirs creates much better living conditions for fish and generates significantly more.
Younger than you. Keep it up. Whenever you're ready. All right. We're ended executive session and we're coming back. So I would like to propose a motion to move forward with the action items, land acquisition project A and land project B.
So moved.
I need a second on that.
Second.
And then we need to actually do a roll call on this one.
Okay. Commissioner Floyd. Aye. Commissioner Cecil.
Aye.
Jerry Farrell. Aye. Commissioner Horn.
Aye.
Commissioner Kleiner. Aye. Ayes have it.
All right, so that's unanimous. We will move forward with those land acquisition projects A and B. I'd just like to thank everybody for their time today and for all the information that you guys were able to relay to us and getting us prepared for this meeting. Remind everybody that our next meeting will be on June the 21st at 8:30. And I would like to go ahead and call for a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.